The moon hung like a pearl in the inky sky, its silver light spilling over the dense canopy of the Blackwood Pack territory. A chill wind whispered through the ancient pines, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant, wild things. For Lyra, every breath in this forest was a symphony of longing and sorrow, a constant echo of a life that once was and a love that she alone remembered. She adjusted the worn leather satchel on her shoulder, her fingers tracing the smooth, cold surface of the peculiar crescent-shaped stone she always carried, a tangible link to a past that gnawed at her soul. Her wolf, a sleek, shadow-grey creature of formidable grace and power, stirred beneath her skin, its senses acutely aware of the shifting currents of the night. This forest, this pack, was meant to be home. But it was a home built on forgotten foundations, a place where she felt both deeply connected and utterly alone. He was here. Always here. His presence, a vibrant hum in the air, a gravitational pull she felt in her very bones, was a constant torment and a persistent hope. Jackson, the alpha of the Blackwood Pack, moved through his domain with an undeniable authority, his presence commanding, his gaze sharp and intelligent. He was everything an alpha should be: strong, wise, fiercely protective. And he was utterly oblivious to the intricate tapestry of shared history that bound them together, a tapestry woven in a life he no longer recalled. In her past life, a lifetime ago, before the threads of fate had been so cruelly tangled, he had been Arik, her mate, the other half of her soul. Their bond had been a roaring fire, a connection so profound it transcended the physical, linking their very essences. They had loved fiercely, fought valiantly, and ultimately died together, defending their pack from a darkness that threatened to consume them all. Lyra remembered it all, the warmth of his hand in hers, the fierce protective growl of his wolf, the agonizing burn of the poison that had claimed them both, a silent promise to meet again, whispered with their last breaths. But the moon goddess, in her infinite, often perplexing wisdom, had granted Lyra a second chance, a rare boon. She had been reborn, her memories of their shared past intact, a heavy mantle of recollection she carried alone. Jackson, however, had returned unburdened by the past, his soul cleansed of the vivid tapestry of their previous existence. To him, Lyra was just another pack member, a quiet, somewhat enigmatic she-wolf who had joined the Blackwood Pack a few months prior. He had rejected her in this life, not with malice, not with cruelty, but with an agonizing, almost polite indifference. The first time their eyes met, her wolf had howled with recognition, a joyous roar of mate that vibrated through her entire being. She had braced herself for the spark, the undeniable jolt of recognition that should have passed between them. But his gaze, while acknowledging her presence, held no such fire. No spark, no recognition. Only the cool, assessing look of an alpha evaluating a new pack member. "Welcome to Blackwood, Lyra," he had said, his voice deep and resonant, utterly unfamiliar, yet achingly familiar at the same time. His scent, a rich blend of pine, musk, and leadership, was a scent she had breathed in countless times. A scent that had once signified home, safety, and unwavering love. Now, it was a fragrant reminder of what was lost. Her wolf had whimpered, a heartbroken sound echoing in the chambers of her mind. He didn't remember. He didn't know. The profound grief of that realization had settled over her, a crushing weight. She had accepted his polite, almost dismissive welcome, her own heart aching with a pain that went beyond words. To him, she was a stranger. To her, he was everything. And this time, the stakes were impossibly high. The moon goddess's gift was not without its conditions. A whispered warning that echoed in her dreams. If you fail to rekindle the bond, if the darkness returns, and you cannot stand together, there won't be another life to come back to. This is your final journey. The weight of that warning pressed down on her, a constant reminder of the ticking clock she alone could hear. She had to make him remember. She had to make him fall in love with her again, not just as Arik, but as Jackson. She had to rebuild a connection that was once as ancient and powerful as the moon itself. And she had to do it before the darkness that had claimed them once before, a shadow she could already feel stirring on the edges of their territory, returned to finish what it had started. She walked through the silent forest, the ghost of a hand in hers, the memory of a love that spanned lifetimes, a secret burden she carried alone. Her mission was clear, terrifying, and utterly essential. A shadow in the familiar. The days in the Blackwood Pack territory unfolded in a rhythm of shared duties and quiet observation for Lyra. She immersed herself in pack life, performing her tasks diligently, joining patrols, and contributing to the communal hunts. Her wolf, a magnificent creature of power and agility, stirred beneath her skin, its senses acutely aware of the shifting currents of the night. She was a capable hunter, a reliable sentinel, and her reserved nature often caused her to be overlooked, a blessing in disguise that allowed her to watch, to learn, and to strategize. She watched Jackson from a distance, studying his movements, his interactions, the subtle nuances of his leadership. He was a natural alpha, commanding respect effortlessly. His dark hair, often falling across his strong brow, his piercing grey eyes, and the quiet intensity that surrounded him were all achingly familiar, yet frustratingly distant. He had Arik's strategic mind, Arik's fierce protectiveness, but none of Arik's memories of her. Her heart ached with every casual glance he gave her, every polite, impersonal nod. She yearned to touch his arm, to remind him of the countless times their hands had intertwined, to whisper shared jokes that only they would understand. But she couldn't. Not yet. She had to tread carefully, to build something new, without the crutch of a shared past he couldn't access. The moon goddess's warning echoed in her mind. Rekindle the bond, not simply expose the old one. The pack beta, Reese, a kind-faced, earnest wolf with warm brown eyes, was the first to approach her consistently. He was welcoming, open, a stark contrast to Jackson's more reserved demeanour. Reese seemed intrigued by her quiet strength, her unusual blend of solitude and competency. He often sought her out for patrols, his easy conversation, a gentle hum against the constant thrum of longing in her own heart. "You're good in the forest, Lyra," Reese commented one afternoon, as they tracked a deer through a particularly dense section of the woods. "Almost like you were born here." Lyra offered a small smile, a polite shrug. I spent a lot of time in the wilderness. A lifetime, she thought, with him. She kept her answers vague, a practiced art of revealing just enough to be polite, but never enough to expose the depths of her secret. She observed the dynamics of the Blackwood pack, noting the subtle undercurrents of discontent that occasionally surfaced. There were murmurs of rogue attacks on the distant edges of their territory, pack members reporting strange scents, unexplained shadows. Jackson handled these concerns with a calm, decisive hand, but Lyra, with her heightened senses and the chilling memory of their past, felt a deeper, more insidious threat stirring. The darkness that had claimed them before, the one that the moon goddess warned about, felt subtly different, more pervasive. Her memories of their past life were vivid, almost painfully so. She remembered Aric's unique scent, the way his fur felt beneath her fingers when they shifted, the comforting weight of his head on her lap. She remembered their small, shared rituals, the secret jokes, the unspoken language of two souls utterly intertwined. These memories were a constant source of bittersweet pain, a reminder of what she had, and what she had to reclaim. She often found herself staring at Jackson during pack meals, trying to find a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a ghost of Aric's warmth. But there was nothing. Only the calm, assessing gaze of an alpha. One evening, during a pack gathering around a roaring bonfire, the conversation turned to local legends. An elder, his voice raspy with age, recounted a tale of an ancient enemy, a shadow-weaving sorcerer who had once sought to extinguish the light of the moon goddess and plunge the werewolf world into eternal darkness. Lyra listened intently, a chill tracing her spine. The elder's description, though couched in folklore, resonated deeply with her fragmented memories of the entity that had claimed her and Aric in their last life. It wasn't just a battle of wolves, but a confrontation with something far older, far more malevolent. Jackson, seated across the fire, listened with a polite, almost dismissive air. He respected tradition, but his pragmatism often outweighed his belief in ancient lore. "Old stories, Elder," he said, his voice deep. "Our threats are corporeal, our enemies tangible. We face rogue packs, encroaching humans, not shadow sorcerers." Lyra's gaze met his across the flickering flames, a silent plea in her eyes. He doesn't remember. The reality of it was a constant aching wound. How could she convince him of a threat he couldn't perceive, a danger rooted in a history he had no recollection of? The moon goddess had given her a second chance, but the task felt impossibly daunting. She knew she couldn't rush him. She had to earn his trust, to prove her worth in this life, on his terms. She needed to subtly demonstrate her capabilities, her understanding of the deeper currents of their world, without revealing the truth that would undoubtedly sound like madness. This time, if she failed to rekindle their bond, if the darkness consumed them again, there truly would be no coming back. The weight of that finality was a constant, heavy presence, urging her forward, pushing her to find a way to make him see, to make him remember, before it was too late. Echoes in the hunt, Lyra sought out opportunities to demonstrate her unusual skills without drawing undue attention to her past. She volunteered for the most challenging patrols, often venturing deeper into the Blackwood territory's fringes where the reported rogue activity was most prevalent. Her keen senses, heightened by both her wolf's natural acuity and the lingering, almost supernatural awareness from her past life picked up subtle cues that others missed. A faint, unusual scent that wasn't quite wolf, nor entirely human, a peculiar silence in the forest, at odd times faint, almost imperceptible disturbances in the natural rhythm of the wilderness. One crisp autumn morning, during a tracking exercise with a small group of younger pack warriors, Lyra's instincts screamed. The air, usually crisp and clear, held a metallic tang, a faint scent of something acrid, out of place. She paused, her head tilted, her senses sifting through the layers of forest smells. The other warriors, focused on the paw prints in the mud, didn't notice her subtle hesitation. "Something's wrong," Lyra murmured, her voice low. "The deer we're tracking, it's not acting naturally, too fast, too erratic." Before her words had fully registered, a guttural snarl ripped through the air, unlike any wolf Lyra had ever heard. It was closer than they anticipated, closer than it should have been. A large, hulking figure, too fast to properly discern, burst from the underbrush. It was a rogue wolf, but twisted, its fur matted and unnaturally dark, its eyes burning with a feral, unsettling madness. The young warriors reacted, but with a momentary delay born of surprise. Lyra, however, moved with an instinctual swiftness that startled even herself. Her wolf surged forward, a grey blur of concentrated power. She tackled the rogue before it could reach the nearest young warrior, rolling with it, a low snarl ripping from her own throat. Her movements were fluid, precise, a deadly dance honed over lifetimes of combat. The rogue was unnaturally strong, its blows feral and uncontrolled, but Lyra's training, her muscle memory from 1,000 forgotten battles, guided her. She parried, dodged, and countered, her movements efficient and brutal. With a final, well-placed strike, she incapacitated the rogue, pinning it to the ground, its mad eyes staring up at her. The other warriors, now recovered, quickly moved to secure the rogue. They looked at Lyra with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. Her fighting style, her immediate, decisive action, was far beyond what they expected from a newly integrated pack member. "Lyra, that was incredible," one of the young warriors gasped, his chest heaving. "You moved like a blur." Lyra merely shrugged, her breath coming in even, controlled pants. "Instinct," she said, a convenient lie. The fight had stirred something deep within her, a primal thrill of battle she hadn't felt in this life, a chilling reminder of Aric's presence in her fighting spirit. News of her actions quickly reached Jackson. He sought her out later that day, his expression unreadable, a faint curiosity in his sharp grey eyes. He stood before her, his large frame casting a shadow over her, his scent overwhelming her senses with its familiar, aching comfort. "I heard what happened on the troll," Jackson said, his voice deep, devoid of overt praise, but tinged with a quiet assessment. "You handled yourself well, more than well. You've clearly had extensive training." Lyra met his gaze, holding it steadily. "I've been in some challenging situations," she replied, choosing her words carefully. "I believe in being prepared." He studied her for a long moment, a faint flicker of something unidentifiable in his eyes, a brief spark that made her heart leap with a desperate hope. Was it recognition? A faint echo of their past? Then it was gone, replaced by his usual guarded expression. Indeed, Jackson finally said, his voice returning to its usual measured tone. We appreciate your contribution, Lyra. Keep up the good work. We need strong warriors in these uncertain times. He turned and walked away, leaving Lyra with a familiar ache of disappointment, yet also a sense of small victory. He had noticed. He was intrigued. It wasn't the searing recognition she craved, the immediate rekindling of their bond, but it was a step, a subtle push, a gentle nudge, a ripple in the calm surface of his unawareness. She had planted a seed of curiosity, and in the intricate dance of fate and free will, that might be enough to begin to unravel the tapestry of forgotten memories that lay dormant within him. The darkness was stirring, but so was a fragile hope. The growing threat, the incident with the rogue wolf, however, was not an isolated event. Reports of similar attacks, unnaturally aggressive and seemingly unprovoked, increased in frequency around the Blackwood Pack's borders. These rogues were different, more feral, their eyes holding a disturbing lack of sentience, a madness that spoke of something beyond simple territorial disputes or hunger. Lyra, with her vivid memories of the ancient enemy, recognized the insidious signs. This wasn't just a rogue problem. It was a symptom of a deeper, more pervasive corruption, a shadowy influence that sought to unravel the very fabric of their kind. She began to spend more time studying the ancient texts, in the Pack's dusty, seldom visited library, searching for any lore, any forgotten prophecy that might shed light on the rising darkness. Her memories of Arek's knowledge, his deep understanding of arcane wolf lore, guided her. She found cryptic verses, faded illustrations of shadow-weaving figures, and mentions of a primordial force that sought to corrupt werewolf souls, turning them into mindless, destructive beasts. The descriptions chillingly aligned with the crazed rogues they were encountering. Jackson, a pragmatist at heart, initially dismissed her concerns as overly fanciful. He focused on strengthening patrols, reinforcing defences, and attempting to track the rogue incursions with conventional means. He valued Lyra's combat skills, but her growing fascination with ancient lore and her ominous warnings about an unseen, ethereal enemy clashed with his logical, grounded approach to leadership. Lyra, we need concrete evidence, Jackson stated during a pack meeting, his voice firm, addressing the growing anxieties among the warriors. These are just rogues, perhaps a new, aggressive strain, or wolves driven mad by disease. We will track them. We will eliminate them. We don't need to delve into fables of shadow sorcerers. His gaze, though respectful, held a hint of frustration directed at her persistence. Lyra, however, refused to be deterred. She understood his skepticism. How could he believe in a threat rooted in a forgotten past? She knew she had to find proof, something tangible that even his rational mind couldn't dismiss. Her focus shifted to the physical evidence left behind by the rogues. The claw marks on trees were unusually deep, the scents distinct. Their patterns of attack were not random. They seemed to be probing, testing the pack's defences, almost as if guided by an unseen intelligence. This wasn't the behaviour of mindless beasts. One moonlit night, Lyra undertook a solo patrol along the northeastern border, a particularly dense and often overlooked section of the forest. Her wolf form moved through the shadows, her senses on high alert. The air was heavy, charged with an unnatural stillness. Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer caught her eye. It was a distortion in the air, a ripple in reality itself. She approached cautiously, her hackles rising, a cold dread seeping into her bones. There, partially camouflaged by an ancient, gnarled oak, was a small, crudely fashioned altar. Not one of stone, but of woven branches, adorned with dried herbs and strange, desiccated animal parts. A faint, sickeningly sweet smell, like decay and corrupted magic, hung heavy around it. And on the ground, surrounding the altar, were intricate, glowing symbols, pulsating with a faint, malevolent light. These were not natural markings. These were symbols of dark magic, the kind she remembered from the ancient enemy. Symbols Arik had once studied, desperate to find their weaknesses. Her wolf snarled, a low, guttural warning. This was it. The proof. Lyra reached into her satchel, pulling out a small, specialized camera she kept for documenting unusual findings. She meticulously photographed the altar, the symbols, every detail, before carefully covering them again, ensuring her presence was undetected. She knew she couldn't confront this alone. This was beyond the scope of a rogue patrol. This was the ancient enemy, the Shadow Weaver, or his influence, manifesting in their world, corrupting their kind. She returned to the pack house, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and grim satisfaction. She sought out Jackson immediately, her expression resolute. He was in his study, poring over maps, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Alpha," Lyra said, her voice quiet but firm. "I found something you need to see. It's not just rogues. It's much older, much darker." Jackson looked up. His grey eyes, usually so calm, now held a flicker of impatience. "Lyra, I told you, we need tangible threats, not ancient prophecies." "This is tangible, Alpha," she countered, her voice unwavering. She placed her camera on his desk, clicking through the images. This is what's corrupting them. This is what's behind the madness. He looked at the first image, his expression unreadable. Then his eyes widened, a flicker of something akin to shock, and then a profound, unsettling recognition crossing his face. The symbols! There was something about them, a faint, almost imperceptible echo in his own ancient wolf memory that resonated. His hand reached out, tracing the glowing lines on the camera screen. What is this?" he murmured, his voice low, a tremor of unease beneath its usual authority. "This, Alpha," Lyra replied, her voice soft but resolute, "is the mark of the Shadow Weaver, the ancient enemy, the one who seeks to turn our kind into mindless puppets, to consume the light of the moon goddess, the one who almost succeeded in our last life." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken history. Jackson stared at the image, then at Lyra, his gaze now holding a profound, unsettling depth. The skepticism was gone, replaced by a dawning understanding, a chilling premonition. He didn't remember the past life, not yet, but the ancient threat, the insidious evil, had resonated with something deep within his Alpha soul. She had found the crack in his skepticism, the opening she so desperately needed. The battle against the rising darkness had just taken a terrifying personal turn, dragging Jackson, whether he remembered it or not, back into a fight that spanned lifetimes. A glimmer of recognition, the discovery of the Dark Altar, and the disturbing symbols shattered Jackson's pragmatic worldview. The images on Lyra's camera, alien and unsettling, resonated with a deep, primal fear within his wolf, a recognition of an ancient, insidious evil that transcended the realm of conventional threats. He stared at the glowing lines on the screen, a chilling sense of déjà vu washing over him, a feeling he couldn't explain. "These symbols," Jackson murmured, his voice uncharacteristically strained. I've seen them before, in dreams, fragments, nightmares I couldn't quite remember." He looked up at Lyra, his gaze piercing, seeking answers. "What is this Shadow Weaver?" Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline, a profound sense of hope blossoming in her chest. This was it. The first flicker of remembrance. The crack in the dam. She carefully explained what she knew, drawing upon her vivid memories of their past life, weaving in details from the ancient texts she had studied. She spoke of the Shadow Weaver as a being of immense, corrupted magical power, one who sought to feed on werewolf souls, turning them into mindless thralls, puppets in his dark game. She explained how Arik had researched these very symbols, desperately seeking a way to counter their malevolent influence. Jackson listened intently, his expression shifting from skepticism to grim acceptance, then to a focused intensity that mirrored Arik's. He paced his study, his hand occasionally going to his jaw, a familiar gesture Lyra remembered from countless strategy sessions in their past life. "If this Shadow Weaver is what's behind the rogues," Jackson finally said, his voice firm, "then we need to understand how he's operating. How is he influencing them, and how do we stop it?" He looked at Lyra, his gaze direct, a newfound trust in his eyes. "You clearly know more about this than anyone, Lyra. You have my full attention. Tell me everything." A profound relief washed over Lyra. He believed her. He was asking for her guidance, relying on her knowledge. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was trust, respect, and a shared purpose that was inextricably linked to their past. Over the next few days, the Alpha's study became their shared war room. Lyra brought out the ancient texts, translating cryptic passages, explaining the lore, and meticulously detailing the Shadow Weaver's methods. She revealed the chilling fact that the Shadow Weaver didn't merely kill, but corrupted, turning wolves into weapons against their own kind, a far more insidious form of destruction. Jackson absorbed every detail, his sharp mind connecting the dots, formulating strategies. He ordered increased patrols, but now with a specific directive to look for more altars, more strange symbols, any signs of the Shadow Weaver's influence. Their shared focus on the impending threat created a new dynamic between them. They spent hours together, poring over maps, discussing strategies, their minds working in a synchronized rhythm that felt achingly familiar to Lyra. She saw glimpses of Arik in his intense focus, in the way his brow furrowed in thought, in the quiet determination that radiated from him. Her wolf hummed with a quiet satisfaction, a nascent hope that the bond was indeed beginning to rekindle. One evening, as they were studying a particularly complex passage about wards against dark magic, Lyra felt a sudden jolt. Her arm brushed against Jackson's, a fleeting contact that sent a spark, a warmth, a ripple of pure energy through her. She gasped softly, her eyes widening. Jackson, too, stiffened, his head snapping up, his gaze locking with hers. His eyes, usually guarded, held a flicker of something profound, a deep, resonant recognition that went beyond mere intellectual understanding. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor passed through his body. His scent, usually a controlled, authoritative presence, now seemed to swirl around them, richer, deeper, infused with a primal scent of mate. "What was that?" Jackson whispered, his voice hoarse, his gaze fixed on hers, a raw intensity in his eyes that made her breath catch. He looked at her as if seeing her for the very first time, and for the 1,000th. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of hope. "The bond," she whispered back, her voice barely audible. "It's staring." A wave of fragmented images seemed to flicker through Jackson's eyes. A sun-drenched field, a shared laugh, the fierce joy of a hunt, the agonizing burn of a poison. They were fleeting, intangible, yet undeniably powerful. He reached out, his hand hovering inches from her face, as if he wanted to touch her, to confirm what his senses were suddenly screaming. But then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the flicker vanished. The intensity in his eyes receded, replaced by a lingering confusion, a frustrating uncertainty. The scent of mate, while still faintly present, dimmed, pulled back by a subconscious resistance. I don't understand," Jackson murmured, his hand dropping. "It felt like something trying to break through, a memory, but not one I recognize." He looked at her, his expression clouded with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. "What did you mean, the bond?" Lyra felt a wave of bittersweet disappointment. So close, yet so far. He hadn't fully remembered, but the seed was planted, irrevocably. The connection, dormant for so long, had begun to stir. "It's complicated, Alpha," Lyra replied, her voice soft, careful. "But it means we're connected in a way that goes beyond this life. It means our spirits recognize each other. It means we have a destiny together to face this darkness as we did before." He stared at her, absorbing her words, his mind clearly grappling with the enormity of her statement. The concept of past lives, of a spiritual connection, was far removed from his pragmatic Alpha reality. But the undeniable physical sensation, the spark that had passed between them, was something he couldn't dismiss. "Connected," Jackson repeated, testing the word on his tongue. He looked at her again, his gaze lingering, no longer just assessing, but questioning, searching. "Tell me everything, Lyra. From the beginning, everything you know about this connection, about our past." Lyra knew this was her chance. Her final chance, perhaps. The moon goddess's warning echoed, but now it felt less like a burden and more like a call to action. The bond was stirring. The darkness was rising. And Jackson, the Alpha who had rejected her, was now beginning to remember the love they shared. A love that transcended lifetimes and promised to be their greatest weapon against the encroaching shadow. Her heart, once broken, now beat with a fragile, fierce hope that this time they would not only survive, but thrive, together. Whispers of a forgotten past, Lyra, began to tell him their story, a narrative that stretched back lifetimes, woven with threads of love, sacrifice, and the persistent shadow of an ancient enemy. She spoke in hushed tones in his study, the fire crackling softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the ancient texts scattered across his desk. Jackson listened, utterly absorbed, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to a profound, almost primal, understanding. She recounted their first life together, a tale of fierce devotion and unwavering partnership. She spoke of their fated meeting under a blood moon, the instant recognition, the undeniable surge of their mate bond. She described their life as Alpha and Luna of a thriving pack, their shared laughter, their quiet moments of comfort, the depth of their connection that permeated every aspect of their existence. She described their strengths, their weaknesses, their shared dreams for their people. She recalled the rise of the Shadow Weaver, a malevolent entity but had sought to corrupt werewolf souls and plunge the world into eternal darkness. She painted a vivid picture of the insidious spread of his influence, the madness that gripped once noble wolves, turning them into soulless puppets. She spoke of their desperate fight, how Arik, with his strategic brilliance, and she, with her intuitive understanding of the ancient lore, had rallied their pack against seemingly insurmountable odds. "We fought him, Jackson," Lyra said, her voice trembling slightly as she relived the agonizing memory. "We pushed him back, but he was too powerful. He ambushed us, cornered us. He used a poison, a dark magic that corrupted the spirit, not just the body. We fell together, defending our pack, our last breaths a promise to find each other again in whatever life came next." Jackson listened, his face a mask of intense concentration. He absorbed every word, every detail, his mind grappling with the enormity of her revelation. As she spoke, fragmented images flickered through his mind, fleeting glimpses of faces he didn't recognize, landscapes he'd never seen, yet felt achingly familiar. A sudden surge of protectiveness, so fierce it almost buckled him, washed over him when she spoke of their shared death, a primal instinct to shield her from a pain he couldn't yet consciously recall. "The moon goddess," Lyra continued, her voice soft but resolute. "She saw our sacrifice. She saw the purity of our bond. She gave me a second chance, a rare gift, but with a warning. If you fail to rekindle the bond, if the darkness returns and you cannot stand together, there will be no third chance. She sent me back, with my memories intact, to find you, to wake you, to complete what we started." Silence fell in the study, thick with the weight of ancient history and unfolding destiny. Jackson rose from his chair, pacing slowly, his wolf restless beneath his skin. He ran a hand through his dark hair, his brow furrowed in deep thought. His rational mind struggled to reconcile the fantastical tale with his grounded reality. Yet his wolf, his very soul, resonated with every word she spoke. The spark, the undeniable connection he had felt when their hands brushed, was a constant, powerful reminder of a truth that defied logic. I don't remember it all," Jackson finally said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Not consciously, but there are echoes. Lyra, feelings, a profound sense of belonging when I'm near you, a protectiveness I can't explain. And these nightmares, as they're not just dreams anymore, they're vivid. I see flashes of a life I don't know, a woman I don't know. Recognize, yet I feel an overwhelming love for her. He looked at her, his grey eyes now filled with a vulnerability she hadn't seen before, a fragile hope. Is that us? Lyra's heart soared. He was beginning to remember. The bond, slowly, inexorably, was reforming. Yes, Jackson, she breathed, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. That's us. That's Arik and Lyra. That's our love, trying to break through. He crossed the distance between them in 2 swift strides. He reached out, his hands gently cupping her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. His touch, warm and tender, sent a jolt of pure recognition through her. Her wolf purred, a deep, satisfied rumble. His scent, now, was overwhelmingly mate, a comforting embrace that finally felt like coming home. Arik, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, trying out the name, testing its resonance. He closed his eyes for a moment, and Lyra felt a surge of his memories, fragmented yet powerful, trying to surface, trying to break through the veil of forgotten time. I feel it, Lyra. I feel us. He pulled her into a tight embrace, his arms wrapping around her, holding her close, as if to anchor himself to this profound, unsettling truth. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in his familiar, comforting scent, the scent of her mate, reborn. She felt his heartbeat against hers, a powerful, steady rhythm that was both new and ancient. The Shadow Weaver, Jackson murmured, his voice now laced with a grim determination. If he is returning, if he is corrupting our wolves, then we have to stop him. We have to finish what we started, together. The shared purpose, the rekindling bond, the looming threat. The pieces were falling into place. The moon goddess's second chance, once a daunting burden, now felt like a sacred mission. Lyra knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger, with the possibility of loss, but now she wasn't alone. Jackson, her Arik, was with her, remembering, fighting, loving. And this time, she vowed, they would prevail. The darkness had tried to extinguish them once, but it would not succeed again. Not with their rekindled bond and the power of a love that spanned lifetimes. Forging a new alliance with their bond rekindled, and Jackson fully embracing the reality of their shared past, the fight against the Shadow Weaver escalated. Lyra and Jackson, now a formidable pair, worked tirelessly, leading scouting parties, analysing intelligence, and fortifying the pack's defences. Jackson's pragmatism, tempered by Lyra's deep understanding of ancient magic and her vivid memories, created a balanced and powerful strategy. They discovered more of the Shadow Weaver's altars, always hidden in remote, forgotten corners of the forest, pulsing with malevolent energy. Each altar was a conduit, a parasitic anchor drawing power from the land and feeding the corruption that infected the rogue wolves. The corrupted wolves were growing older, their attacks more coordinated, their madness more profound. They were no longer just a nuisance, they were becoming a significant threat, their numbers swelling with each passing day. Lyra's memories guided them to forgotten texts and hidden lore, revealing the Shadow Weaver's true objective: to gather enough corrupted energy to break a powerful ancient seal, a barrier that separated his dark realm from theirs. Once broken, he would unleash his full power. transforming the world into a realm of eternal shadow, a chilling echo of their past life's nearly failed defense. During one intense scouting mission, deep within a labyrinthine cave system, at the edge of Blackwood territory, Lyra and Jackson encountered a particularly large and aggressive group of corrupted rogues. These were not the mindless beasts they had seen before. Their movements were coordinated, almost tactical. They seemed to be guarding something. As they fought, a familiar sense of shared purpose and fluid coordination enveloped them. Their wolves moved as one, a symphony of power and instinct. Jackson's strength and strategic prowess complemented Lyra's agile combat style and intuitive understanding of their enemy's weaknesses. They were a force, a unit, as they had been in their past life, their every move anticipating the others. They managed to push through the rogues, discovering a cavern deeper within the cave system. There, pulsating with an eerie, dark light, was not an altar, but a massive, jagged fissure in the rock face, surrounded by an intricate web of glowing, dark symbols. The air around it hummed with malevolent energy, so thick it felt almost suffocating. This was the ancient seal, and it was weakening. The Shadow Weaver was actively trying to break through, and standing before the fissure, a shadowy, ethereal figure began to coalesce, its form shifting and indistinct, yet radiating an undeniable power. It was the Shadow Weaver, or a manifestation of his presence, attempting to breach the barrier. A chilling, guttural laughter echoed through the cavern, a sound that twisted Lyra's very soul, a sound she remembered from her nightmares. "So, the little wolf returns?" A voice, ancient and resonant, a whisper that burrowed into their minds, echoed in the cavern. "And with her the stubborn alpha. Foolish. You merely delay the inevitable. This time there will be no escape, no second chances." Jackson growled, his wolf straining against his skin, a primal surge of fury. He understood now, viscerally, the true depth of the threat. This was the entity, from his fragmented memories, the source of the insidious corruption. "You won't break the seal," Jackson roared, his voice booming through the cavern, defiant. "Not while I draw breath, not while my Luna stands with me." The Shadow Weaver's form solidified slightly, revealing glimpses of elongated limbs and eyes that burned with cold, malevolent fire. "Your Luna remembers the price of defiance, Alpha. She remembers the poison. She remembers the darkness." His voice shifted, becoming a chilling, taunting whisper directly in Lyra's mind. "You died once. You will die again. And this time, there is no goddess to save you." Lyra felt a cold dread, but she pushed it down, focusing on the powerful, grounding presence of Jackson beside her. "We broke you once," she declared, her voice strong, echoing with the strength of her rekindled bond. "We will do it again." The Shadow Weaver laughed, a sound that grated on their very souls. "Then come, little wolves. Let us finish what we started. Let us see if your bond can truly defy oblivion." He moved with an unnatural speed, dissolving into shadows, then reappearing behind them, his attack sudden, unexpected, striking at their minds, sowing discord and fear, attempting to corrupt their spirits. The corrupted rogues, emboldened by his presence, surged forward, their mad eyes fixed on Lyra and Jackson. The fight was brutal, a desperate dance against an enemy that fought with both physical and ethereal weapons. The Shadow Weaver was cunning, exploiting their deepest fears, projecting horrifying illusions, trying to break their resolve. He focused his attacks on Lyra, attempting to overwhelm her with memories of their past death. The agonizing moment of falling, knowing that her memories were her strength, but also her vulnerability. But Jackson, his alpha instincts blazing, became her shield. He fought with a ferocity she had only remembered from their past life, a raw, protective power that radiated from him. He shifted between wolf and human forms with seamless ease, his large frame intercepting blows, his growls defiant, challenging the Shadow Weaver's very essence. Their bond, strengthened by shared purpose and rediscovering love, was their greatest weapon. They moved in perfect synchronization, anticipating each other's needs, their thoughts flowing together. When the Shadow Weaver tried to sow doubt in Lyra's mind, Jackson's calming presence, his unwavering belief in her, grounded her, dispelling the illusions. When a rogue lunged at Jackson, Lyra was there, a blur of grey fur, intercepting the attack. "He feeds on fear, on division," Lyra shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Focus your will. Fight with your spirit." Jackson roared, a powerful sound that vibrated through the cavern, rallying his own inner strength. He recognized the truth in her words. He channeled his alpha power, not just into physical blows, but into a wave of pure, uncorrupted energy, pushing back against the Shadow Weaver's insidious influence. The battle raged, a dance of light and shadow, of spirit and flesh. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the very soul of their pack, for the future of their kind. The moon goddess's warning echoed, but now it felt less like a burden and more like an affirmation. This was their final journey, and they would face it, together, their rekindled love a burning light against the encroaching darkness. The Shadow Weaver, ancient and malevolent, had underestimated the power of a bond that spanned lifetimes, a love that transcended death itself. The price of memory, the battle within the cavern, was a whirlwind of raw power and insidious manipulation. The Shadow Weaver, sensing the formidable unity of Lyra and Jackson, focused his malevolent energy on severing their burgeoning mate bond, knowing it was their greatest strength. He projected terrifying illusions directly into their minds, pulling on their deepest fears and the agonizing memories of their past demise. For Lyra, it was a re-experiencing of the poison, the slow, agonizing paralysis, the fading light in Arek's eyes as they succumbed. For Jackson, the fragmented nightmares he'd had became vivid, searing visions, the unbearable loss, the crushing helplessness of watching a loved one die, the profound grief of an existence suddenly stripped of its light. These were not just images, they were sensations, emotions, designed to overwhelm and divide them. "You failed her once, Alpha," the Shadow Weaver's voice hissed in Jackson's mind, a venomous whisper. "You were weak. You let her die. You betrayed your kind," the voice screeched at Lyra, twisting her memories. "You left them to save yourself. You abandoned him." But their bond, now fully rekindled, acted as a powerful shield. When the Weaver tried to fill Lyra with doubt and guilt, Jackson's unwavering belief in her, his fierce protectiveness, flowed through their connection, grounding her, reminding her of their shared sacrifice, not her solitary burden. When dark visions of Aric's death threatened to consume Jackson, Lyra's calming presence, her gentle reassurance that they faced this together, pulled him back from the brink, allowing him to channel his grief into raw, unyielding fury. They fought with a desperate grace, their movements a synchronized ballet of defiance. Jackson, in his massive wolf form, became a whirlwind of teeth and claws, tearing through the corrupted rogues that surged towards them, his growls a roar of pure protective rage. Lyra, shifting between human and wolf forms with seamless agility, used her intuitive understanding of the Shadow Weaver's magical attacks, deflecting his ethereal blows, anticipating his shadowy movements, her blows precise and devastating. As the battle raged, Lyra remembered a crucial detail from the ancient texts, a secret weakness of the Shadow Weaver that Aric had meticulously uncovered in their past life. He drew power from despair and discord. His true form, however, was anchored to a specific, tangible vessel, a dark amulet that held the essence of his power. Destroying it would shatter his hold. His amulet, Lyra shouted, her voice strained as she dodged a shadowy tendril that lashed out at her. It's his anchor. His true power is in a physical vessel. Jackson's eyes, burning with a new understanding, scanned the cavern, searching. The Shadow Weaver, sensing his vulnerability, unleashed a concentrated blast of dark energy directly at Jackson's mind, attempting to crush his will, to overload his fragmented memories. Jackson staggered, a guttural cry escaping his lips as a torrent of long-forgotten images flooded his consciousness. Not just fragments now, but vivid, complete memories. The joy of their first kiss, the warmth of Lyra's body beside his, the intimate whispers, the shared dreams, the agonizing pain of their death, the specific words of their last promise. The full weight of their past life crashed over him, a powerful, overwhelming tide of memory, love, and agonizing loss. He fell to one knee, momentarily incapacitated by the sheer force of the recollection. The Shadow Weaver seized the opportunity, his form solidifying for a split second, a malevolent sneer twisting his features. He lunged at Lyra, a shadowy blade forming in his hand, intending a final, lethal strike. But in that instant, Lyra saw it. Around the Shadow Weaver's neck, hidden beneath his ethereal form, was a faint, pulsating glow. A small, obsidian amulet, intricately carved with dark runes. It was his anchor, his weakness. With a primal scream of raw fury, Jackson, now fully remembering, fully Aric, roared. The memories, the pain, the love, fueled his power. He erupted from his momentary paralysis, his wolf larger, more powerful than before, his true alpha essence unleashed, his grey eyes, now blazing with the ancient knowledge of their past, locked onto the amulet. He lunged, not at the Shadow Weaver's ethereal form, but directly at the glowing amulet, moving with a speed and ferocity that shocked even Lyra. The Shadow Weaver shrieked, a sound of pure agony and terror, as Jackson's powerful jaws clamped down on the amulet. With a sickening crunch, the obsidian shattered, shards of dark light exploding outwards. A blinding flash of pure, uncorrupted light erupted from Jackson. A surge of raw alpha power, mixed with the ancient light of the moon goddess, pouring into the cavern. The Shadow Weaver shrieked again, his form dissolving, unraveling, screaming in a voice that was pure anguish and frustration. His malevolent presence, once so pervasive, began to dissipate, to melt into nothingness. The glowing symbols on the fissure faded, the dark energy around the ancient seal recoiled, shrinking, then vanishing. The corrupted rogues, instantly released from the Shadow Weaver's dark influence, crumpled to the ground, whimpering, their eyes slowly regaining a semblance of sentience, their madness replaced by confusion and fear. The air in the cavern, once thick with malevolence, began to clear, replaced by the cool, damp scent of ancient rock and clean earth. Jackson stood over the shattered fragments of the amulet, his chest heaving, his wolf form radiating immense power. He shifted back to human, his eyes still blazing with the raw intensity of his newly reawakened memories. He looked at Lyra, his gaze filled with a profound depth of love, recognition, and agonizing regret. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, the first word he spoke since remembering. He reached for her, his hands gently cupping her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "I remember. All of it. Our life. Our love. Our death. I remember you." He pulled her into a fierce, desperate embrace, holding her as if he would never let her go, as if to make up for all the years of forgetting, all the pain of being a stranger. She buried her face in his chest, inhaling his scent, the scent of Arik, of Jackson, of her mate, whole and complete once more. The moon goddess's second chance had borne fruit. The bond was not just rekindled, it was fully restored, reinforced by shared trauma, by rediscovered love, and by the brutal truth of their past. The darkness was vanquished, or at least driven back, sealed once more. This time, they had stood together, fought together, and won. Their love, a flame that spanned lifetimes, had not only saved them, but had saved their world. The future, though still uncertain, now stretched before them, a testament to a love that truly defied death itself. Healing and rebuilding the aftermath of the confrontation with the Shadow Weaver was a period of intense healing and profound change for the Blackwood Pack. The corrupted rogues, now freed from the dark entity's influence, were brought back to the Packlands. Their recovery was slow, requiring careful tending from the Pack's healers and the empathetic presence of Lyra, who understood the insidious nature of the Shadow Weaver's corruption better than anyone. She worked tirelessly, helping to cleanse their spirits, offering comfort and guidance as they grappled with the fragmented, terrifying memories of their time under the Shadow Weaver's control. Jackson, now fully merged with Arik's memories, carried the weight of both lives on his shoulders. The initial euphoria of remembering Lyra, of rekindling their deep mate bond, was quickly followed by a profound sorrow for the years lost, the moments they hadn't shared, the pain he had inadvertently caused her by his power. Forgetfulness. He often found himself staring at her, a quiet apology in his eyes, an unspoken vow to make up for every missed second. "I'm so sorry, Lyra," he would whisper late at night, holding her close, tracing patterns on her skin. "For not remembering you sooner, for the pain you carried alone." "You found your way back to me, Jackson," Lyra would reply, her voice soft, her fingers tangling in his dark hair. "That's all that matters. Our bond brought us together. Our love brought us through." Their relationship deepened exponentially, built on the solid foundation of their ancient bond and the shared crucible of battle. Their communication was seamless, a blend of spoken words, shared glances, and the silent, profound language of their joined minds. They moved as one, their wolves often shifting in tandem, finding comfort and strength in their complete unity. The Alpha and Luna bond between them flourished, radiating a powerful protective aura over the entire pack. Lyra, once a quiet enigma, now fully embraced her role as Luna. She brought not only her ancient wisdom and strategic insight, but also a deep well of empathy and compassion that resonated with every pack member. She helped Jackson lead, offering perspectives that balanced his fierce protectiveness with a nuanced understanding of internal and external challenges. Reese, the beater, watched their undeniable bond with a quiet reverence. He had always respected Jackson, but now he saw a new depth in his Alpha, a completeness he hadn't perceived before. He saw the profound love that flowed between Jackson and Lyra, and he accepted it, his own good heart rejoicing in their rediscovered happiness, even if it meant his own quiet admiration for Lyra had found its calm. Natural boundary. He remained a loyal and trusted confidant to both, a pillar of support in their time of rebuilding. The destruction of the Shadow Weaver's amulet had not eradicated him entirely, as Lyra knew from her past life, but it had severely crippled him, severing his connections to their realm and forcing him back into the shadows, from which he emerged. The corrupted rogues, though recovering, served as a stark reminder of the insidious threat he posed. A constant vigilance they knew they must maintain. Jackson and Lyra implemented sweeping changes within the Blackwood Pack. They established stronger mental and spiritual defenses, rituals drawn from ancient lore that Lyra remembered, designed to fortify the pack against future attempts at corruption. They trained the warriors in new techniques, preparing them for unseen battles against a foe that operated beyond the conventional. They also deepened their understanding of the moon goddess's intricate role in their lives. The cryptic warning, the second chance, now made profound sense. It was a test, a trial, a divine intervention designed to ensure that the ancient darkness would not prevail. Lyra felt a renewed sense of purpose, not just in their love, but in their shared destiny to protect their kind. One evening, as the moon shone full and bright, Lyra and Jackson stood together at the highest point of their territory, looking out over the sprawling forest, now peaceful and vibrant beneath the lunar glow. They were in their wolf forms, magnificent creatures bathed in silver light. Jackson's powerful grey wolf nudged Lyra's sleek form, his head resting gently on her back. "This time," Jackson rumbled, his voice a deep, comforting vibration in her mind, a shared thought that flowed between them. "We build a legacy, Luna, a legacy of strength, of unity, of unwavering light, so that the Shadow Weaver, if he ever dares to return, will find us ready, stronger than ever." Lyra leaned into his warmth, her wolf purring softly. "Together, Alpha," she confirmed, her own thoughts echoing his. "Always together." The silence stretched between them, filled with the profound weight of their shared past, their hard-won present, and the boundless hope for their future. Their love, a beacon that had guided them across lifetimes, was now a powerful, unyielding force, ready to face any challenge, forever bound by destiny, by sacrifice, and by the unshakable promise of a love that truly defied death. The moon goddess's second chance had been a gift, and Lyra, with Jackson by her side, was ready to embrace every moment of it, knowing that their love was indeed an eternal flame, burning brightly against the encroaching coal. Darkness. The unfolding future as the seasons turned, the Blackwood Pack flourished under the combined leadership of Jackson and Lyra. Their bond, now fully integrated, brought a powerful synergy to their rule. Jackson's strategic foresight and commanding presence were perfectly complemented by Lyra's deep spiritual insight and her nuanced understanding of ancient threats. Their pack grew stronger, not just in numbers, but in spirit and resilience. Lyra initiated profound changes within the pack's spiritual practices, reintroducing ancient moon goddess rituals that had faded into obscurity over time. These rituals, infused with the vibrant energy of their rekindled bond, served to strengthen the pack's collective spirit, making them less susceptible to any lingering dark influences or future attempts by the shadows. Weaver. The pack members felt a renewed connection to their heritage, a deeper sense of belonging and purpose. Jackson, once solely focused on physical defense, now embraced the importance of spiritual well-being. He actively participated in the rituals, his powerful alpha presence grounding the ceremonies, enhancing their protective power. He saw how these practices not only fortified his pack against external threats, but also brought a profound sense of peace and unity from within. Their days were a harmonious blend of pack duties and personal moments. They trained together, their wolves moving in perfect synchronicity during hunts, the breathtaking display of power and grace. They debated strategies in his study, her hand often resting in his, a silent current of shared understanding flowing between them. Their nights were filled with quiet intimacy, a rediscovery of the tender passion that had defined their past life, made even sweeter by the knowledge of what they had overcome to reclaim it. Lyra revelled in every touch, every whispered word, cherishing the present with a depth only someone who had lost it all could truly appreciate. Reese, the loyal beta, remained a steadfast ally and friend. He continued to be Jackson's right hand, but now he also served as a bridge between the alphas and the broader pack, translating Lyra's more esoteric wisdom into practical terms for those who hadn't shared their Akran. Unique experiences. He observed the deep, unwavering love between Jackson and Lyra with a quiet awe, finding a subtle comfort in the undeniable strength of their bond, knowing it secured the pack's future. News of the Blackwood Pack's renewed strength and spiritual vibrancy began to spread among neighboring packs. Delegations from distant territories arrived, seeking counsel, observing their practices, and recognizing the powerful aura of the combined Alpha and Luna. Jackson and Lyra became revered figures, their story whispered among the wise, a testament to the enduring power of love and perseverance. While the full truth of their past lives remained a secret, the palpable strength of their mate bond and their unwavering unity was undeniable. The Shadow Weaver, though vanquished from their realm, remained a distant, chilling threat. Lyra knew, from her memories, that ancient evils never truly died, but merely retreated, gathering strength in the shadows. But this time, they were prepared. They had built stronger foundations, forged deeper connections, and, most importantly, their love, the very essence of their intertwined souls, was a beacon of light that no darkness could extinguish. One moonlit night, as Lyra lay in Jackson's arms, looking up at the luminous orb in the sky, she felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. The crescent-shaped stone, which she still carried as a memento of her journey, pulsed faintly with a warm light against her skin. "The moon goddess," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "She truly blessed us, Jackson." He held her tighter, pressing a kiss to her hair. "She did, my Luna. She brought us back to each other. She gave us this second chance." His voice was deep, resonant, filled with the profound love that now illuminated his every fibre. "And this time, we'll make sure it's forever." Lyra smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached her eyes. The pain of rejection, the agonizing burden of forgotten love, was now a distant echo, replaced by the vibrant reality of their intertwined souls. They had faced oblivion, crossed lifetimes, and found each other again. Their journey was a testament to the power of a love so deep, so ancient, that it transcended even death, securing not just their own future, but the future of their kind. The story of Lyra and Jackson, of Arik and Lyra, was not just a tale of past lives, but a living testament of eternal strength of a bond, chosen by fate, and forged by an unbreakable love. The years that followed the Shadow Weaver's defeat settled over the Blackwood Pack with a deep, pervasive sense of peace, a tranquility earned through lifetimes of struggle and sacrifice. Lyra and Jackson, now fully integrated as Alpha and Luna, presided over a flourishing territory. Their personal bond, a radiant beacon of ancient love and newfound joy, extended its warmth and strength throughout the pack. The former corrupted rogues gradually shedding the lingering shadows of their torment, slowly but surely reintegrated into pack life, their healing a testament to Lyra's gentle guidance and Jackson's unwavering compassion. Lyra often found herself walking through the bustling pack grounds, a quiet smile playing on her lips. She observed the playful sparring of young warriors, the laughter of children tumbling in the sunlit clearings, the contented hum of daily life. These were the moments she had fought for, the future she and Arik had died to protect. Each shared glance with Jackson, each brush of their hands, was a silent affirmation of their victory. Their bond was a living thing, constantly evolving, deepening with every shared experience. She learned to anticipate his thoughts, to feel the subtle shifts in his mood, a seamless connection that transcended physical proximity. He, in turn, often found himself completing her sentences, understanding her unspoken needs with an uncanny intuition. "Are you thinking of the past again, Luna?" Jackson's deep voice would often murmur beside her, his presence a comforting warmth. He had grown accustomed to her quiet introspection, no longer fearing it as a sign of distance, but understanding it as a deep connection to their shared history. Lyra would lean into him, her head resting against his shoulder. "Always, my Alpha, but now, with a profound gratitude for what we have now, for us." Jackson had fully embraced the memories of Arik. While the initial shock had faded, a rich tapestry of understanding had settled in. He often shared forgotten anecdotes from their past life, details he'd spontaneously recalled, or moments that Lyra's current actions triggered in his mind. These shared memories became a vital part of their daily life, weaving the past into the present, reinforcing the continuity of their love. He would sometimes catch a glimpse of himself in a reflective surface and see a flicker of Aric's earnest gaze, a ghost of a smile, and the feeling would be less unsettling now, more like a familiar friend resurfacing. The Blackwood pack thrived, their numbers increasing with new births and the cautious integration of lone wolves drawn to their stability and strength. Lyra and Jackson established a council of elders and trusted warriors, delegating responsibilities, fostering a sense of communal leadership. Rhys, the beater, blossomed under their guidance, proving himself an invaluable leader in his own right, managing patrols, mediating disputes, and ensuring the smooth running of pack logistics. He remained Lyra and Jackson's most trusted confidant, privy to the deeper nuances of their leadership and the lingering threat of the Shadow Weaver. "The border reports are quiet, Alpha," Rhys reported one crisp morning, his tone hopeful. "No unusual rogue activity for months. It seems our efforts to cleanse the corrupted lands are holding." Lyra, who had been listening intently, nodded. "The seals we reinforced are strong, Rhys, and the pack's spiritual fortitude is higher than it's ever been. The Shadow Weaver will find no easy entry. However, Lyra's ancient knowledge, coupled with her intuitive sense, whispered that true malevolence rarely remained dormant forever. The Shadow Weaver was weakened, but not destroyed. His essence persisted, albeit fragmented and far-flung. The moon goddess's warning, "If the darkness returns, and you cannot stand together, there won't be another life," remained a poignant reminder of the eternal vigilance required. This subtle undercurrent of awareness prompted Lyra to dedicate more time to strengthening not just the physical defenses of the pack, but also its spiritual and mental resilience. She worked closely with the pack's youngest generation, teaching them ancient tales not as mere legends, but as cautionary guides to the true nature of their world. She introduced them to meditation practices, encouraging them to connect with their inner wolves and the guiding light of the moon goddess, building a spiritual fortitude that would serve them well in any future conflict. One such teaching session involved the peculiar crescent-shaped stone Lyra always carried. It had become a symbol of her journey, a tangible link to her past. She explained to the curious younglings that it was a memory stone, a rare artifact that absorbed whispers of past events and the spiritual energy of those who carried it. While a simplified explanation for their young minds, it held a deeper truth for her. "This stone," Lyra told a circle of wide-eyed pups, holding it up for them to see the faint, ethereal glow it sometimes emitted, "reminds us that some things are meant to be, some connections are eternal, and even when darkness tries to break us, the light within us and the bonds we share will always guide us back to each other." Jackson watched from the periphery, a gentle smile on his face, understanding the layers of meaning behind her words, knowing that Lyra was not just teaching the pups, but reinforcing the truth of their own journey. As the pack's influence grew, so did its connections with other territories. Alliance treaties were forged, trade routes established, and shared defense strategies discussed. Lyra and Jackson, as a unified alpha pair, became known not just for their strength, but for their wisdom and diplomatic prowess. Their unique blend of ancient knowledge and modern leadership made them exceptional peacekeepers, mediating disputes between rival packs and fostering an era of unprecedented cooperation among the werewolf communities. Despite the relative calm, Lyra felt a subtle shift in the spiritual currents of their world. It was a faint disturbance, like ripples in a distant pond, but her heightened senses recognized the signature. The Shadow Weaver wasn't idle. He was patient. He was subtly exploring new avenues, attempting to regain a foothold, not through overt corruption, but through more insidious means, targeting the most vulnerable, the isolated, the forgotten. She discussed these faint tremors with Jackson, who listened with a seriousness that showed how far he had come from his initial skepticism. "What is his method now, Luna?" Jackson asked, his brow furrowed in thought as they walked through the moonlit forest, their wolves padding silently side by side. "He targets the emotionally fractured," Lyra explained, her voice low. "Those who feel abandoned, those consumed by grief or resentment. He promises them power, comfort. Belonging then subtly twists their spirits until they serve his will without realizing it. He doesn't need to break open the seal if he can build an army of willing, if unwitting, pawns." This new understanding prompted a shift in their strategy. They began sending out emissaries, not just to forge alliances, but to offer aid, support, and spiritual guidance to smaller, struggling packs, to lone wolves who might be vulnerable to the Shadow Weaver's subtle manipulations. They worked to create a unified front, not just of physical strength, but of spiritual resilience, a web of light woven across the werewolf world. Lyra knew that their love had saved them, but to save their world, they needed to extend that love, that sense of unity, to every corner they could reach. The peace they enjoyed was fragile, a precious thing that needed constant tending, a legacy they were committed to building, one paw print at a time. The whisper of the forgotten pack, their efforts to extend their reach, led them to a remote, often overlooked region far to the north, a desolate expanse shrouded in ancient legends and marked by unusual geomagnetic anomalies. Reports had been scarce from this area for decades, only faint, unsettling whispers from passing lone wolves speaking of a lost pack that guarded a forbidden secret. Lyra's instincts flared. This felt different, more significant than stray, vulnerable individuals. This felt like a deeper, older wound, exactly the kind of place the Shadow Weaver would seek to exploit. Jackson, trusting Lyra's heightened intuition implicitly now, organized a small, elite scouting party. He and Lyra led it, accompanied by Reese and a handful of their most skilled trackers. The journey was arduous, taking them through rugged mountains and dense, unmapped forests. As they ventured deeper, the air grew heavy, thick with a subtle, malevolent energy that pressed down on their senses. The moon goddess's light seemed muted here, struggling to penetrate the oppressive atmosphere. "This is it," Lyra murmured, her wolf form bristling. "His signature. It's faint, but it's here. Something is deeply wrong." They found the remnants of a pack settlement, a ghost town of dilapidated wooden structures swallowed by time and nature. But unlike other abandoned sites, there was an unsettling stillness, an absence of natural life. No birds sang, no small creatures scurried. The silence itself felt heavy, unnatural. As they explored, Lyra's memories flared. This place, it was familiar, not from this life, but from the echoes of her past. Arik had once spoken of a powerful, ancient pack, the Stoneheart Pack, known for their deep connection to the earth, and their mastery of elemental magic, a pack that had mysteriously vanished centuries ago. They were rumored to possess unique artifacts, powerful defenses against dark magic. Could this be their forgotten territory? Suddenly, a low growl echoed from deeper within the ruined settlement. It was a wolf, but its voice was strained, guttural, tinged with a weariness that went beyond physical exhaustion. Lyra and Jackson shifted, their wolves alert, ready. They found him in the remains of what looked like a communal hall. He was an ancient wolf, his fur matted and grey, his eyes sunken, radiating a profound despair. He was barely holding on to his wolf form, his body emaciated, his spirit clinging to life by a thread. Around him, etched into the crumbling stone floor, were faint, dark symbols familiar, insidious symbols of the Shadow Weaver. "Who are you?" Jackson demanded, his voice firm but not aggressive, sensing the wolf's profound suffering. The old wolf whimpered, his eyes flickering with a desperate, momentary clarity. The last of the Stoneheart, trapped, guarding the relic. His voice was raspy, laced with centuries of isolation and despair. "He waits for it." Lyra stepped forward, her heart aching with recognition. "The Shadow Weaver," she whispered. "He's trapped you here, isn't he, feeding on your despair, on your isolation, trying to get to a relic of power." The old wolf nodded weakly. "The Amulet of Harmony protects the core of our pack's power. He tries to corrupt it, to turn our strength against the light." He shuddered, a fresh wave of despair washing over him, threatening to consume his last vestiges of consciousness. So much sorrow, so much forgotten. Jackson's eyes widened, then hardened with grim understanding. "He's found a new way to establish an anchor," he growled, turning to Lyra. "Not by creating new altars, but by corrupting existing sources of power, using ancient, forgotten pain." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. The Amulet of Harmony. She remembered snippets of lore about it from Arik's studies. It was a potent artifact, capable of amplifying spiritual energy and creating powerful protective wards. If the Shadow Weaver could corrupt it, he would gain access to a tremendous source of energy, enough to finally break the ancient seal they had reinforced. This was his ultimate goal. They worked quickly. Jackson, with his powerful alpha presence, helped to stabilize the ancient wolf's fading spirit, projecting calming, reassuring energy. Lyra, meanwhile, began to examine the faint, pulsing symbols on the floor, recognizing the subtle variations in the weaver's new, more insidious sigils. He wasn't overtly attacking. He was subtly draining the amulet's energy, feeding on the despair of its last guardian. "We need to cleanse this place," Lyra stated, her voice resolute. "And protect the amulet. We need to find it." The old wolf, gaining a sliver of strength from their presence, pointed a shaky paw towards a section of the crumbling wall. Hidden beneath the heart of stone. Jackson moved immediately, his powerful hands clearing debris. Beneath the ancient hearth, nestled in a small, concealed compartment, they found it, a beautiful, intricately carved amulet of polished green jade, pulsing with a faint, warm light that fought valiantly against the oppressive darkness of the cavern. But faint lines of dark, corrupted energy snaked across its surface like parasitic veins. The Shadow Weaver was indeed at work, slowly poisoning its power. Lyra gently took the amulet, its warmth a comforting presence in her hand, yet she could feel the insidious pull of the dark magic trying to leach into her. She needed to cleanse it, and they needed to free the last guardian of the Stoneheart pack. "He needs to be cleansed of this despair," Lyra said, looking at the old wolf. "His spirit is tethered by the Shadow Weaver's influence, but not entirely corrupted. He can be saved." Jackson nodded. "We'll take him back to Blackwood. Our healers are skilled, and with your knowledge, Luna, we can break this." He looked at the amulet in her hand, his gaze firm. "And this amulet, Lyra, can you cleanse it?" Lyra looked at the beautiful, corrupted jade, then at Jackson, her mate, her alpha, her partner in this eternal struggle. Together, she affirmed, her voice filled with unwavering resolve, "With the moon goddess's blessing and our bond, we will cleanse it. And we will ensure the Shadow Weaver never gains this power." The discovery of the Stoneheart Pack's relic and the profound vulnerability of its last guardian proved to be a critical turning point. It revealed the Shadow Weaver's evolving strategy, his cunning and patience. But it also offered Lyra and Jackson a new opportunity to heal not just their own pack, but to extend their light and protection to forgotten corners of their world, drawing strength from ancient bonds and safeguarding powerful relics that could be turned against them. Their journey, once about reclaiming a lost love, had now fully embraced its broader destiny, to be guardians of the light, champions against the encroaching shadow across all lifetimes. The silent vigil against the eternal darkness continued, now with renewed purpose and a deeper understanding of the stakes involved. The cleansing and the prophecy, bringing the ancient Stoneheart wolf, who introduced himself as Kale, back to Blackwood, was a delicate operation. Spirit was fragile, a flickering ember constantly threatened by the residual despair woven into him by the Shadow Weaver's influence. Lyra, with her deep understanding of spiritual warfare and her intuitive connection to ancient Troain lore, guided the pack healers. They used purifying herbs, ancient chants, and focused meditation to gently coax Kale's spirit free from the Shadow Weaver's lingering grasp. Jackson's calming alpha presence and his unwavering belief in Kale's recovery were instrumental, providing a grounding force against the spiritual torment. It was a slow, arduous process. Kale would often slip into fits of trembling, reliving centuries of isolated despair and the torment of witnessing his pack's slow, agonizing fade into oblivion, caused by the Shadow Weaver's subtle draining of their life force through the amulet. But each day, with Lyra's patient work and the pack's collective warmth, Kale regained a sliver of himself. The dark symbols on his skin, faint marks of the Shadow Weaver's touch, gradually faded. Parallel to Kale's healing, Lyra focused on the Amulet of Harmony. It was a potent artifact, pulsing with a life force that resonated with the moon goddess's energy, but it was deeply scarred by the Shadow Weaver's corrupting touch. Lyra and Jackson undertook the cleansing ritual together, drawing on the immense power of their reunited mate bond. They meditated for hours, channeling pure, uncorrupted lunar energy into the jade amulet, pushing back against the dark tendrils that marred its surface. Process was draining, both physically and spiritually. Lyra felt the Shadow Weaver's faint resistance, a lingering, insidious whisper of malice attempting to break their concentration. But with Jackson's powerful presence beside her, his hand firmly grasping hers, their combined will was an unyielding force. He learned to synchronize his energy with hers, to feel the flow of purifying light, and to direct it with astonishing precision. As the last vestiges of darkness receded from the Sebla amulet, it pulsed with a blinding emerald light, radiating pure energy and harmony. The corrupted lines on its surface vanished, replaced by a pristine, vibrant glow. Lyra felt a surge of ancient power flow from the fiend amulet into her, a knowledge of its true purpose settling into her mind. "It's a conduit," Lyra breathed, her eyes wide with understanding. "Not just for harmony, but for ancient knowledge. It holds the echoes of the Stoneheart Pack's accumulated wisdom." And a prophecy. Cale, now significantly recovered, his eyes clearer and holding a flicker of his old self, stirred from his healing trance. He looked at the glowing amulet, then at Lyra and Jackson, a profound sense of awe and gratitude on Amal. His weathered face. "The prophecy," Cale whispered, his voice gaining strength. "My ancestors spoke of it. The time when the ancient darkness would rise again, and a twice-born Luna and her remembered Alpha would stand against it, guided by the amulet of harmony. They would learn the ultimate truth of the Shadow Weaver's power, and secure the future for all." He paused, his gaze fixed on Lyra, then Jackson. "You are the ones. The prophecy has been fulfilled." Lyra felt a chill. The moon goddess's warnings, her second chance, Cale's survival, the amulet's cleansing, it all connected, weaving into a tapestry of preordained destiny. The moon goddess had not merely given her a second chance. She had set them on a path towards a grander purpose, a pivotal role in the ongoing struggle between light and shadow. Through the amulet of harmony, Lyra began to access the Stoneheart Pack's accumulated knowledge, a vast reservoir of ancient lore, spiritual practices, and defensive techniques against dark magic. She saw visions of the Shadow Weaver's ultimate origin, not merely a dark sorcerer, but an entity born from the collective fear and despair of all sentient beings, growing in power by feeding on discord and spiritual fragmentation. His goal was not just to rule, but to consume light, to plunge existence into a void of nothingness. This new level of understanding revealed that destroying the amulet in the quiet cavern had merely severed his physical anchor in their realm, forcing him to retreat. But his essence, being woven from despair, could never be truly annihilated. He could only be contained, his influence minimized, his access to their world barred. The ultimate truth was that the fight was eternal, a constant vigil, but one they could now win through perpetual spiritual strength and unity. "He feeds on division," Lyra explained to Jackson, Reese, and Cale, her voice echoing with the weight of newly acquired wisdom. "He exploits the cracks in our collective spirit. Our strongest defense isn't just physical, it's the unity of all werewolf kind. It's the harmony between packs, the strength of our bonds, the light of the moon goddess within each of us." Jackson listened, his face grim but determined. "So, our mission is not just to defend Blackwood, but to foster unity across all territories, to show them how to strengthen their own spiritual defenses, to build an impenetrable wall of light against his return." Cale, now much stronger, rose to his feet, a flicker of his old dignity returning. "My pack tried," he said, his voice laced with renewed hope. But we fell into isolation. Our despair became a feast for him. Do not make our mistake. Connect. Share. Build a network of light that he cannot penetrate. He looked at Lyra, then Jackson. I will help you. My knowledge, what remains, is yours. With Kale's guidance and the wisdom from the Amulet of Harmony, Lyra and Jackson began to formulate a daring, unprecedented plan. They would embark on a journey, not of conquest, but of communion. They would visit other packs, share their knowledge, and demonstrate the power of unity and the importance of spiritual resilience. They would help other alphas and lunars understand the true nature of the Shadow Weaver, not as a fable, but as a persistent, insidious threat that could only be countered by collective light. The challenges were immense. Centuries of territorial disputes, ingrained mistrust, and varying traditions had to be navigated. Some packs would be wary, others outright hostile. But Lyra and Jackson were no longer just an alpha and Luna ruling their own territory. They were emissaries of hope, driven by a love that spanned lifetimes and a purpose that encompassed the very survival of their kind. The Moon Goddess's second chance wasn't just for them. It was for all wolves, and they were ready to lead the way into an era of unprecedented unity, an eternal vigil against the shadows.